If we were a two-person band, we would say the band is back together. We're sort of some days a two-person band. Matthew Berry alongside me, Field Yates. Hello and welcome back as you get your earpiece sent into the IFB cord. Good to have you back, Matthew. Certainly glad to have you back. It's Tuesday. It is the busiest draft week of the year. I'm sure you've got plenty of drafts this week yourself. I know a lot of people are chomping at the bit for their opportunity to make their first selections, Daniel.
I really want to know who your favorite two-person band is. Do you know any good two-person bands?
My favorite two-person band. Do you have someone that comes to mind? I was thinking of duos, like just in general, like Harold and Kumar would be one, right? Like,
okay, not a band, but I appreciate
I said duos. I said not generals.
Sure.
I said not bands. I said just duos in general, right?
That's fair.
Like, they're funny, you know?
I think my favorite two-person band is either Fantagram, I don't know if you ever heard of them, or
definitely not.
The White Stripes.
There are only two of them in that band, huh?
Yeah.
Sonny and Cher.
There you go.
Bad,
Matthew,
right?
you know Sonny and Cher, right?
Yeah, they went to high school together, yeah.
I would say Tenacious D.
Oh, I am low-key super proud of you right now, Matthew Berry.
Love the D. Long live the D.
Okay.
But what are you doing?
Dang it, I didn't hit the button.
It's fine.
That's
anyway,
a problem.
No, back when I lived in LA, I used to see Tenacious D at Largo, which was a small little club all the time before they blew up, before Jack Black became a thing. Like, and now they're, a phenomenon, the whole thing. But it was hilarious because it was these two overweight guys in t-shirts and shorts coming out before 80 people at this club in like Midtown LA. And anyway, they're amazing. So I mean, I've seen them for 20 some odd years. Anyway, long live the D.
Rewind.
Fantasy news
From the National Football League.
This is the instant replay.
So, Matthew, huge news over the weekend. I emptied the barrel a little bit yesterday on Andrew Luck and also Lamar Miller, certainly starting with Andrew Luck. But I want to give you the opportunity to discuss your thoughts on Andrew Luck and what his retirement means in the world of fantasy football. Let's start there. Andrew Luck, your reaction, your surprise, your overall sentiments towards
Shocked. So I was overseas at a wedding when the news broke.
I don't think you were overseas. I
was in and out of the I was out of the country.
Okay.
I suppose that's correct.
Yeah, technically speaking.
Technically, I mean, fine. If you want to be technical, you're right. I was not overseas. I was but I was in a different country.
Right.
At any rate, and so it was crazy town. Got the alert. Thank you, Fantasy Life app. Got the alert there, and they were first with the news. And
I think Schefter was. I'm kidding.
No, Schefter broke it. They were first to alert me. So if you weren't getting alerts from Schefter on Twitter,
right?
Yes, but 100%. We just say that real quickly. Adam Schefter broke the news. It is. I'd be curious. I haven't had a chance to talk to Schefter yet. I wonder if it is the biggest news break of his career, because I think it's up there.
In terms of how you quantify that, it's probably a little bit subjective, right? In terms of like retweets and likes, I think I've seen this somewhere. Someone has tabulated that is the largest news break of his career. I would say in terms of spectrum, I've listened to Adam's podcast, which you can find, of course, on iTunes or anywhere.
Yeah.
And he has said basically that it drew reaction unlike any other story that he has ever reported on in his career.
I saw that. And I also thought, by the way, so it's a great story. Like, Adam breaks this incredible story that comes out of nowhere that no one saw coming. And then I see other reporters in the media industry not credit Schefter. Just say, yes, per source, Andrew Luck is retiring. And I'm like, is your source Shefty's Twitter feed?
Are you surprised?
No, disappointed.
Right.
Not surprised, but disappointed. But whatever. So anyway, kudos to Shefty. And yes, and that the first person or entity to amplify Shefty's report was the Fantasy Life app.
All right,
I'll
so
say that.
The fantasy
but
news.
Yes, great. The fantasy news. So first off, just salute to Andrew Luck to having the guts to make a decision that was right for him, but that took a lot of people by surprise and drew some criticism. Not in any way, shape, or form am I comparing myself to Andrew Luck. But I will say that when I was 35 years old and decided to give up show business, which was a very lucrative career that I'd worked a long time, my entire life, to get into, and said, you know what, I just want to try to make a living at fake football, believe it or not, at a time when it wasn't possible really to make a living. And a lot of people were like, really? But I'm like, this is what I want to do for my life. So I understand at least a small portion of the emotions that he went through. And so anyway, I can appreciate basically what Andrew Luck is going through, and hats off to him, and can't believe anyone that would criticize him. To me, the only piece that you can criticize him about is the timing. You know what I mean? And I don't think it was calculated, right?
In any event, that's fine. I think it's probably another conversation for another time. In terms of fantasy football, though, like I don't want to pontificate on whether Andrew Luck should or should not have.
There's no fantasy value to Andrew Luck.
Right. So, I guess what it means for T.Y. Hilton and the fallout there for the other players on the Colts offense that are impacted by Andrew Luck.
So that is a different question. Okay. So, because the question was about Andrew Luck. So, all right. So the question's about what does Andrew Luck's retirement mean for the fantasy value of the remaining Colts?
Yes.
Okay. So first off, I have a bit of a controversial take here, which is I don't think Jacoby Brissett's going to be that bad. I've seen a lot of other fantasy analysts, and I didn't get a chance to listen to your analysis here, Field, but I think I've seen a lot of people sort of dump on Jacoby Brissett and just basically say like, oh, the sky is falling, and should they just tank for Tua, and should they just, they've got some expiring contracts, should they deal like Doyle and Ebron, and Hilton's a free agent in 2020, and just like empty the vault and like just, try to tank for Tua.
Right. That's not happening.
That's not happening. And by the way, I think Jacoby Brissett is pretty good. Is he Andrew Luck? No, of course he's not.
Right.
But as far as backups in the NFL go, I think he's at the higher end here. And I know a lot of people want to quote 2017. I think the Colts are a completely different team, franchise, and offense than they were in 2017. Understand that Jacoby Brissett started that year as a New England Patriot. And then, immediately gets traded, like, I want to say week 3 or something like that.
Labor Day weekend, Saturday.
I mean, right.
It's my best friend's wedding when that happened.
So, right. So, I mean, like, at 2017, Jacoby Brissett wasn't even on the Colts at this time back in 2017. So he's learning on the fly. And candidly, I think Frank Reich, a much better head coach and a much better play caller than what the Colts had in 2017. They have a much better offensive line. They have better skill position players around her. And by the way, Jacoby Brissett has been in that offense now for 2 years.
So this is all in line. Yeah, I'd agree with all this here. But to Jacoby Brissett point, like you don't view him as a draftable commodity right now, right? So
I have him as QB 25.
Okay, so I've got him at quarterback 26. It's a 2-quarterback league option only. But I think maybe what people are wondering about is, all right, T.Y. Hilton, did he slide down your rankings yesterday? Did Marlon Mack maybe even move up your rankings if you buy into the idea of running the football more?
Yeah, so this is where they each went. So anyway, I like Jacoby Brissett like in a deep 2-quarterback league or as a guy to sort of look at and interesting. I have Jacoby Brissett in a dynasty league, which I'm very excited about, which I drafted him actually.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, because I thought he was going to be, I thought there was a chance he would be a starting quarterback next year for another NFL team, not thinking Luck was going to retire, but I knew he's a free agent at the end of this year.
Sure.
And I sort of liked his skill set. Okay. In terms of T.Y. Hilton, moved him down to wide receiver at 17. Remember in 2017, when he played with him, he had a 23% target share from Jacoby Brissett. Actually averaged more air yards per target with Brissett than he has with Luck in his career. T.Y. Hilton is still going to be the focal point of this passing offense. He's still an insanely talented player. It's still going to be a pass-first offense, I believe. T.Y. Hilton saw 130 targets from Andrew Luck. If you extend Jacoby Brissett's career numbers with T.Y. Hilton over 16 games and give him 130 targets, it's all loosey-goosey math here. But that would be 71 receptions, almost 1,200 yards, 5 touchdowns. Basically, wide receiver 17 last year, which is ended up where it's not how I came up with wide receiver 17, but where I came up with. Because again, you're talking about somebody who's going to get a massive target share and is insanely talented with a passable quarterback. Not a great quarterback, but not a downgrade from Andrew Luck, but not a massive downgrade. So I still have him as a low-end QB, wide receiver 2.
How about Marlon Mack? Any thoughts there in terms of what it means for his value, if anything at all?
Yeah, and I kept him about the same. Maybe you drop him a few spots. And, listen, the concern, of course, is that they're not as good a team, an NFL team, with Jacoby Brissett under center. As a result, they start losing more, and do they start going to the passing down back in Nyheim Hines a little bit more? I will say they started to use Marlon Mack a little bit more in the passing game towards the end of last year in the playoffs. And looking at sort of the snaps in the preseason, Marlon Mack well outsnapping Nyheim Hines when Jacoby Brissett was under center. And I think you could, so my feeling here is that the offense is a little bit less efficient, so there's probably less scoring opportunities for Marlon Mack, but they probably lean on him a little bit more given the offensive line and given, Jacoby Brissett is not Andrew Luck. So I have him as a very low-end RB2, high-end flex, right there in that. Right now we have him at running back 19. You have him at 20, so we're right there sort of in the same area.
Yeah, pretty much in line again with where I was yesterday. I did bump Hines up a little bit, Matthew. I got some pushback yesterday when we passed along a note about how much more Nyheim Hines played when the Colts were trailing last year versus Marlon Mack. And some of it was, well, look at the end of season usage. It was 10 catches last year for Marlon Mack.
Yeah.
More involved in the passing game, still was not a passing game threat. And I know people said, look at the preseason usage. Are the Colts that concerned about converting a 3rd and 6 in the preseason?
No, they
so
certainly
clearly one is a much better pass catching back.
Yes, 100%. It's just whether they feel like, and this always goes to always the deal with pass catching running backs in general, is Marlon Mack a good enough pass catching back that you want to keep him out there so that the defense has to guess a little bit?
Yes, he's outstanding.
Right, and so there's the idea of like that you want to, that was always the issue with like Darren Sproles back in the day, right? Is that if Darren Sproles came in, you knew it was a passing down.
Who was the comp for him, by the way?
Nyheim Hines.
Yeah,
of course. So my point is that maybe it gives the offense a little bit more versatility if Marlon Mack, he's not as good a passing down back as Nyheim Hines, but he's good enough in order to keep the defense on its toes. So I think I think Nyheim Hines is going to be a better NFL player than he's going to be a consistent fantasy asset this year. But I understand the concern, and this is why I knocked Mack down a spot or two. But I still think he's a legit, again, lower-end RB2, high-end flex.
So let's get to the other huge news from the AFC South over the weekend, which is Lamar Miller.
Before we move there, though, I will say I think there's one person that is a winner here, to the extent there is, and that's Jack Doyle. Just real quickly, Jack Doyle, who's going as tight end 20 right now, and Eric Ebron's going as tight end 13. I currently have Jack Doyle tight end 12, and I have Ebron at tight end 15. So I'm actually I have Doyle higher than Ebron. Remember when Jacoby Brissett was under center, Jack Doyle 23% target share, tied with Hilton for the lead with the Colts. 2017 he scored 169 fantasy points. He was tight end 5 on a per game basis. He was tight end 7 overall that season. Like, he flourished under Jacoby Brissett. And if you look sort of to what he did in college, he also liked to target the tight end as well. We know Frank Reich's system and the Colts in general are a tight end friendly system here. So Jack Doyle, who caught over 73% of his targets from Jacoby Brissett in 2017, seems to be a little bit of a connection there. And I understand they didn't have Eric Ebron that time, but look at what Ebron and Doyle did when they played together. Doyle ran more routes, got more targets. The only thing that Ebron did better than Doyle was catch touchdowns. Right. And we think that's a little bit fluky.
A little bit fluky, still the better red zone weapon. I'm not quite as bullish on either one of these tight ends, but it will be interesting to see whether that relationship between Jack Doyle and Jacoby Brissett manifests itself again this season.
But again, tight end 20, he's free in drafts. Sure. So I certainly think, at least on ESPN, so I certainly think Jack Doyle is, if you punt on the tight end position outside of the top 10, I like Jack Doyle this year.
So Lamar Miller suffered a torn ACL on Saturday. Brutal news for the Texans, who are really, really thin at running back, at least in our estimation. And that includes having recently traded for Duke Johnson. We posed a poll question yesterday. Is the Texans' leading rusher for 2019 currently on their roster? 62% of you said no. Matthew, I'll use that as a jumping off point to you. Lamar Miller goes down. Are you presuming that it's going to be the Duke Johnson show, not just to begin the season, but for the entirety of this season in Houston?
It's a great question. And my gut is no. My gut is that they sign somebody else, they trade for somebody else as well, that they don't want Duke Johnson to be the guy. Because here's the other thing. Like, they traded for Duke Johnson because they felt they needed a complement and depth behind Lamar Miller.
Right.
Now they have no depth behind Duke Johnson.
Right.
So, look, I get it. I get the argument. Duke Johnson, 526 carries for 3,519 yards in college.
Right.
Like, he was a feature back in
the all-time leading rusher at Miami. All-time.
At the U. Stefania's not here, but she would want us to say that, right? 5'9", 210 pounds. So I get it. But here's a guy that in the pros has never been used as a significant ball carry. He hasn't had more than 82 carries in a season since his rookie year. He got 104 his rookie year.
Right.
And so he hasn't been used that way. And you can say maybe the Browns misused him, but it doesn't feel like the Texans traded him to be that guy. And so that uncertainty,
right?
That uncertainty behind, by the way, still an offensive line that we don't think is particularly good.
Massive question marks at offensive line. Massive.
So I currently have Duke Johnson, I want to say at running back, I want to say 27, 28. Okay. Do I have him at 28?
I've got him at 27. You've got him at 28.
I got him at 28. Okay,
yep.
I was doing off the top of my head. Yep. So, yeah, I mean, So again, that's a low end RB3.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
A flex play.
My takeaway yesterday was that if it was just for week 1 value, I think Duke Johnson will rank higher.
Sure.
If I did my ranks for week 1 right now, I think Duke Johnson will be higher than running back 27. With the roster currently constructed that way, I just can't foresee a scenario where the Texans don't add at least some running back, or one of these running backs that I'm not considering on their roster right now actually is better than I am giving that player credit for right now. I like Duke Johnson. The intent of that trade, though, was, as you mentioned earlier, they traded for him to back up Lamar Miller and to be the best pass-catching back on their roster. Very interesting decisions coming up for Houston in a lot of ways over the next 10 days.
I'll say this, however. I'll say yes, Jadeveon Clowney is certainly, there are a lot of rumors swirling around whether Clowney is still on the Texans, and feels like he won't be. And so you have to wonder if he gets dealt, does a running back, is that one of the pieces that comes back for Clowney? Obviously, you're not going to get him for just a running back, but you're gonna have to give up back of the Brinks trunk for Jadeveon Clowney, but you wonder if maybe a running back gets thrown into the mix there.
Would be interesting.
I will say this. If the Texans don't make a running back move, if they end up going, Duke Johnson is the guy you want. I don't see anyone on the roster usurping, not a word I expected to use today.
That's impressive.
Usurping Duke Johnson as the lead running back. I think the way that Duke Johnson goes back to sort of the role we imagined prior to Lamar Miller's injury is if they sign somebody that was released or they make a deal as part of a deal for Clowney.
Right, some sort of trade, a waiver claim, some sort of notable running back addition is the only way that Duke Johnson gets usurped. Yeah, you went overseas, bought a thesaurus. Very intellectual weekend for you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, there were some rumors out there that turned out, and I know you confirmed that they actually were not true, but there were some rumors out there that Jay Ajayi had signed with the Texans. You, as of the moment of your tweet and as we're doing this show, that is not the case.
Yeah, and my read is that it wasn't just in that moment. It was also it's not going to happen.
Okay.
Was my read on it. Yeah.
Got it. Understood. So we'll see. There's always kind of the typical names that are swirling around and roster cuts are coming up. So we'll sort of see who gets.
Busiest week of the transaction year in the NFL coming up, and drafts in fantasy football. Also, big week for Hard Knocks. Matthew, tell us more about that tonight.
HBO Sports, NFL Films, and the Oakland Raiders team up for an unfiltered all-access look at what it takes to make it in the National Football League on Hard Knocks, training camp with the Oakland Raiders. The new season of the groundbreaking the new season of the groundbreaking sports reality series spotlights this historic AFC West franchise that has an intriguing mix of established veterans, highly regarded rookie hopefuls, and free agent acquisitions under head coach John Gruden. Don't miss Hard Knocks Training Camp with the Oakland Raiders. New episodes Tuesdays at 10 p.m. only on HBO.
Double trouble. Double trouble. Double trouble. Double trouble.
As of this moment, they're on double secret probation.
We are down to our last 2 days of Double Trouble. We've got just 4 teams left. We have powered through. Yeah, it feels crazy.
It does.
Normally,
I haven't been here for a couple of days. I've been out and about.
Yeah, but
doing stuff.
Yeah. So normally we end up having to do some Triple Trouble days. Today we are just going with 2 more. We go to the Ravens and the Bengals, and maybe not a ton of players that are super interesting on both of these rosters, but the ones that are very interesting. The Vegas win total projection for the Ravens is 8.5. They've increased their win totals each of the past 3 seasons. And Matthew, Lamar Jackson is one of the most intriguing players in fantasy football this season. I don't want to say that he took the NFL by storm last year, but obviously he had a notable finish once he replaced Joe Flacco as the starter in Baltimore. You have him as quarterback 15. I've got him as quarterback 11. His ADP right now is quarterback 15. He might be the player that garnered the most bust or breakout potential. He has
an insanely wide range of outcomes, and he might be the quarterback that I'm the most nervous about. Okay. And I mean it this way.
Yep.
I'm at QB 15, and I could be dead wrong. The majority of my rankings field, almost all my rankings, I'm like, you know what? I can see a scenario where I could be wrong on this ranking or wrong here, but I'm okay with it because I've done all the analysis, I've done the research, and I feel good. My ranking is what I believe to be the most likely outcome. Not necessarily always going to be the outcome. Obviously, we can't predict the future, but I feel good in sort of the range of where I have these players, right? Lamar Jackson, no idea. So you have him at QB 11, I'm at QB 15. He's going as QB 15. from weeks 11 through 17, when he was a starter last year, he was QB8.
Yep.
Guy was the 8th best quarterback in fantasy once he came into the league. And by the way, that was as a rookie with an offense that candidly was designed for Joe Flacco. Now they've brought in Greg Roman. They have gone into the season knowing this is the Lamar Jackson show. So they've installed plays and packages and schemes that fit his skill set that aren't necessarily what Joe Flacco does well, because they're very different quarterbacks, obviously. And we hear rumors, so we know about the rushing, right? We know about the rushing, at least a rushing touchdown or at least a 20-yard rush in all 7 starts. Scored at least 15.9 fantasy points in all 7 starts last year. 17 carries per game
as a runner. Yep.
in his 7 regular season starts. I mean, just insane usage. Like, just as a running, I don't know if we have the stat here, but like his numbers as a running back. Like, if you just categorized him as a running back, I believe he would have been a top 20 fantasy running back during the time from week 11 on that he started. But then we're hearing reports. So we know the rushing abilities is crazy. But then we keep hearing reports about what the Ravens want to do offensively this year. And they want to be up-tempo. They want to throw. Like, everyone keeps talking about, like, oh, Lamar Jackson can't throw. Lamar Jackson can throw. Does he have some accuracy issues? Of course he does. He did at Louisville. He's going to in the pros.
And they're major accuracy issues, to be clear.
Yes. Cam Newton is a career under 58% accuracy guy. Sure. Cam Newton has massive accuracy issues.
Sure.
And by the way, Cam Newton is the 2nd best quarterback in fantasy since he came into the NFL. So there's no question he has accuracy issues, and that's an area of his game that he needs to improve on. But for what we care about, fantasy stats, doesn't totally matter, because if they're going to let him chuck it, they're going to let him chuck it.
I have actually done a little bit of an about-face with Lamar Jackson. He was. We do our sleepers and busts, and I'm not a huge advocate of sleepers and busts. I think that they're basically no-win propositions. But that being said...
Much of what we do, by the way, in fantasy is a no-win proposition.
Still, I think
our career is basically a no-win proposition.
In a lot of ways, I think sleepers and busts don't really move the needle a whole lot personally for me.
Yes,
we also do them very early on in the summer. And, for whatever reason, I understand why people want that. It's a easy content hook, right?
Sure.
Sleepers, busts, list, rankings, etc. My quarterback bust was Lamar Jackson. I was concerned, sort of anecdotally and statistically, because of the various accuracy issues that you just highlighted, and he consistently has. I had the chance to amend that pick early on in the preseason, and I was not quite ready to do so. But as you can tell by my ranking of him at quarterback 11, I would like to amend that pick. And
obviously,
the reason why, Matthew, is just a reminder of how brilliant of a runner he is. He had some moments this preseason that were unlike any runner I can think of at the quarterback position. Again, since Michael Vick.
Video game-esque.
He is a joystick waiting to happen. Yeah. He is incredible. And it seems like the reports from those that have their eyes on the field at the practices every single day has been that he has improved as a thrower. Now, am I concerned? Yes. But as you mentioned, last year with virtually zero passing ability, he was quarterback 8 for the last 7 weeks of last season. So I'm starting to buy Lamar Jackson more and more. I think we both agree, though. Wide range of outcomes, which
massively
is still
wide range of outcomes. Like, he has yet to complete 15 passes in an NFL game.
Yep.
His receiving core is a couple of rookies and Willie Snead, and Mark Andrews. We'll get to the tight ends in a second, but it's extremely inexperienced. It's an extremely inexperienced pass catching core around him. Having said that, I'm at 15. My concern is I am too low.
Right. Not just rushes he gets, by the way. How about this? He had 16 goal-to-go rushes last season. 16 goal-to-go. Has that stack up? That's more than Zeke, David Johnson, or Nick Chubb. Now, I get it. Nick Chubb and David Johnson. Dave Johnson, bad year. Nick Chubb, second half starter. But still, more than Zeke Elliott? Zeke freaking Elliott?
Yeah.
Interesting year ahead for Lamar Jackson. Let's get to the pass catchers, Matthew, and it's kind of tough.
Just to put a bow on Lamar Jackson, I will tell you this. I don't think I would want to go into an NFL season with Lamar Jackson as my only NFL starter. As my only starting quarterback.
You mean in real football or in
fantasy football?
Okay, fantasy.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
in fantasy, what we're doing here. So, apologize if I misspoke. Yes, and so in terms of going into a fantasy season, I would want to have Lamar Jackson plus somebody else. Okay. So I'm currently in the middle of a slow draft, a 14-team league that I play with, like Not Cool Keith and a bunch of the other guys around here as well. I don't think you're in that league, but
I'm not. No.
The Bristol Benchwarmers League. Shout out to those guys. But anyway, so it's Thirsty Kyle's in that league and a bunch of others. Anyway, whatever. So Lamar Jackson's my quarterback in that league. But I also drafted Jameis Winston. Again, it's a 14-team league, and I obviously waited on quarterback here. So that's the right thing. Like, I like going into the season with him, but I would want somebody else because I think there's some upside there. But I think the bottom could fall out as well. And because he runs so much and he has a bit of a slight frame, you do worry about injury as well with him.
So last year, once he took over as a starting quarterback, their wide receivers bottomed out. They could not have been less relevant week to week. Part of the reason why Michael Crabtree was cut. John Brown did not re-sign. I know that Buffalo gave him a good contract, but still, there was really no momentum towards him returning to Baltimore from what we could tell. So I don't think we have to go through each Baltimore wide receiver and say, here's where this guy stacks up. I think most realistically, Matthew, maybe one pass catcher amongst the wideouts in Baltimore really emerges, right? I mean, I can't imagine 2 or 3 of them becoming fantasy relevant. I think the names of note are Hollywood Brown, their first-round pick out of Oklahoma, who is dealing with a foot or has dealt with a foot issue coming into the NFL. Willie Snead, who still sort of, I mean, he was
His
at least,
name is
he had
Willie
not
Snead.
totally
I said something
evaporated,
about
right?
Willie Snead.
And then Miles Boykin, third-round pick out of Notre Dame, big play potential, certainly a big fast guy. Speed is certainly the key in this Baltimore receiving group. Is any of them worth a draft pick?
In a standard 10-team league, probably not. In a deeper league, yeah. And dynasty leagues, yeah. So I have Marquise Brown on a couple of deeper league teams, and I have Miles Boykin on one. And I like both guys quite a bit. Look, Marquise Brown was a first-round pick for a reason, right? I mean, they're sure. Yeah. And again, if we buy that we think the Ravens offense is going to open it up this year, which I do. So I buy that. I think they're going to be a very interesting offense. Again, to your point, we've heard from beat reporters on the ground, including our own Jameson Hensley, who does a great job covering the team. John Harbaugh himself has said he believes the offense is going to revolutionize football. And so whether he's correct or not, the fact that he's saying that and thinks that means they're probably not just running the ball 25, 40 times a game, something like that, right? I mean, they're going to try to open things up at least somewhat. And so Marquise Brown, very talented player, appears to be fully healthy. I think he's got the best shot at leading this team in targets.
A little while ago, you said that you made a point that Cam Newton's completion percentage was atrocious, and yet he still has been fantasy relevant throughout the entirety of his career. And I'm not trying to poke the bear here, but at the apex of Cam Newton, that 50 touchdown season, the part of the reason why he was so good was the deep ball. Ted Ginn was incredible. I think that Ted Ginn can sort of be the role model, not about in life and character, but just in terms of football role model for Marquise Brown. If he becomes fantasy relevant this season, it might be because, hey, you've got somebody who has 40 catches for 700 yards or 650 yards this season with 6 touchdowns. That might be best case scenario. I'm not Mike Clay, but projections-wise, might be a good scenario there.
I think so, too. He's an interesting guy for best ball.
Yeah,
I will say
agree on that. A lot of talent. Very explosive.
Yes. And by the way, when I went out to the NFLPA rookie premiere, Miles Boykin, just for whatever it's worth, one of my favorite interviews. Just a really, I thought, incredibly thoughtful and bright young man in terms of how he approaches the game. And this doesn't mean anything. I've interviewed players that I really liked, and they've done nothing in the NFL. I've interviewed players that I thought that guy's a moron, and then those players have gone out and just completely balled out. So I mean, it's not always indicative, but there have been a lot of times where I've interviewed somebody, been very impressed with them in terms of sort of their thoughtfulness, their approach to the game, and how they see football. And then, not surprisingly, they have had a lot of success in the NFL. Miles Boykin was one of my favorite interviews that I've done in the last couple of years.
Hiring is challenging, but there's one place you can go where hiring is simple, fast, and smart. A place where growing businesses connect to qualified candidates. That place is ZipRecruiter.com/06010. ZipRecruiter sends your job to over 100 of the web's leading job boards, but they don't stop there. With their powerful matching technology, ZipRecruiter scans thousands of resumes to find people with the right experience and invites them to apply to your job. As applications come in, ZipRecruiter analyzes each one and spotlights top candidates so you never miss a great match. ZipRecruiter is so effective that 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate to the site within the first day. And right now, my listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive web address. ZipRecruiter.com/06010. That's ZipRecruiter.com/06010. One more time for the people in the back. ZipRecruiter.com/06010. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. So maybe an interesting year this year for the Baltimore backfield. You just talked about how John Harbaugh made mention of potentially revolutionizing football. I think that probably where they end up is just running the football a lot, not just with the quarterback.
Is that revolutionizing because they set it back 100 years?
So Mark Ingram was signed to a 4-year contract worth $16 million this offseason. Pretty good money for him. In 12 games last year, remember, he was suspended for the first 4 games of the season. 138 carries for 645 yards, 7 total touchdowns. You have him ranked as RB24. I've got him ranked as RB25. His ADP is RB21. We've got some smart people in fantasy, including our friend Pat Doherty from Roto World, who has noted, like, is it really that, like, are we that low on Mark Ingram? It's a run-heavy offense. He is the starter here. Like, are you? But so in a lot of ways, it suggests maybe he can be a massive workhorse here, Matthew. But I have some concerns. What might some of your concerns be if you have them for Ingram this season?
The concerns are that we're misjudging the volume here. I mean, again, because the volume last year was insane. Again, we go back to weeks 11 through 17. Once it became the Lamar Jackson show. Ravens third in running back carries per game, first in running back rush yards per game, first in yards per carry. They made Gus Edwards a thing. And so now
that's a good thing, though. That sounds good for Mark Ingram.
Exactly. So my point is, but that's the big argument for Mark Ingram, right? Is just this insane volume that we expect him to get. But can he hold up? Remember, only twice last year did he have more than 13 carries in a game. Over his final 6 games of last year, he averaged under 10 carries per game. He's 29 years old. And you're a little worried about if this offense is a little bit too predictable. In 2018, Mark Ingram had a 1.78 yards per carry average with 8 or more men in the box. That was 38th out of 42 qualified running backs. I mean, he struggled against a loaded box, right? That's a lot of numbers to tell you something that's sort of instinctive. Like, there's not a lot of wiggle to Mark Ingram.
Right.
And so you're counting on insane volume. But if you go with the idea that we're saying that, hey, we think their offense changes somewhat, and they open it up and they start throwing a lot more, then that's a concern. And Mark Ingram, we've seen him have some success in the passing game in his NFL career, but not always. They have some other pieces in there, including Justice Hill. We'll get to him in a second here. Gus Edwards is still there as well. And so if he doesn't get the insane volume that we think he does, if he's not involved in the passing game, then it's a little, there's some concern there. And that's why I'm at running back 24, just outside my top 20, because I don't know that he gets as much volume as some people are expecting. I don't think he's involved in the passing game here. I think there's some risk of injury. I think there's other mouths to feed.
I think I see it exactly the same way. Don't think he's a massive part of the passing game this year. He's a capable pass catcher. This is maybe like way too simple, but like if you told me this offseason that a player was signed to be the clear-cut running back, and you were giving me all the options that were available, either to sign or to draft reasonably high in the draft. I'm not talking about a 5th-round pick that emerges as a starter. But like of all the options, guys available in free agency, plus the guys that went to, let's say, the first 60 picks of the NFL draft, I don't know that Mark Ingram was the guy that really got me fired up, right? Like a solid player, but maybe not a spectacular player, which is why I kind of have a ceiling on his ability this season.
So Mark Ingram on ESPN.com is currently going at pick 51. It's top of the 6th round.
Okay.
So just to give you...
Not egregious.
Right. Not egregious, but just to give you a comparison of who else is going around him, right, in terms of what you're giving up by drafting Mark Ingram. So Damian Williams is going at 47, pick 47, like 3 or 4 spots. But I prefer Damian Williams significantly more. Going after Mark Ingram. Here's the next 4 running backs going after Mark Ingram on ESPN.com. Marlon Mack.
Change it a little bit, but yes, I still prefer him.
Right. James White.
Prefer him as well.
100%. Sony Michel.
Prefer him as well.
100%. Like, Sony Michel's going way too late here. David Montgomery going in the 7th round. Give me David Montgomery over Mark Ingram.
Yep, I agree on all of that. How about other running backs, though, in this Baltimore backfield? Gus Edwards in the mix, and Justice Hill also in the mix. That's a player I think I'm interested in.
Yeah, I mean, I know, and you've been talking up Justice Hill a little bit. I think I agree with you.
Sleeper.
100%. Definitely a
round
sleeper.
Pick at Oklahoma State. If the theme of this offense is speed, one player in the backfield has it. It's Justice Hill. The guy is lightning fast. Oklahoma State, effective there, had great production there. A lot of guys who play in the Big 12 have a ton of production. I'm aware of that. But the word on Justice Hill is that, like, doesn't need much space.
No.
Is not going to break a bunch of tackles, but if he gets that little crevice of space, it could be a bunch of house calls, which I think that spacing and speed are kind of the tenets of a successful offense as the way that Baltimore envisions it. So I'm just...
Especially with a mobile quarterback, to your point, ran a 4.40 at the combine here, 5'10", 198 pounds. There's some get up and go.
Yeah, there is. And I think they like him there in Baltimore. So this is a late round flyer, not a player that I'm saying is a must draft in all 10 team leagues, but an interesting name to keep in mind. Also, the tight ends.
And by the way, if you look at sort of he's had an impressive preseason.
He has. He's got some wow moments to him, which I know there are a lot of players that are going to have some wow moments in preseason that never amount to anything. But I've had my eye on Justice Hill even since before the preseason.
I will say, if you are trying to handcuff Mark Ingram, I still think it would be Gus Edwards. Like, I think if Mark Ingram were to be hurt, to your point,
first crack at it would go to Gus Edwards.
Yeah, Justice Hill is not like an every down guy.
But by the way, Gus Edwards has like zero pass. There's a massive. Like
100%.
ceiling. There's a clear ceiling on him, is what I would say.
Yes, sir.
Tight end was seemingly the sweet spot for Lamar Jackson last year. Mark Andrews, Hayden Hurst. A lot of buzz this preseason, Matthew. Mark Andrews, who has been one of the best players in the Ravens training camp. However, there are some warning signs here on getting too excited about Mark Andrews.
Yeah, I mean, I think the argument for him is once Lamar Jackson took over last year, Mark Andrews 6th in receiving yards among all tight ends, right? And the Ravens overall for the season last year ranked 6th in tight end targets. So it's part of that offense. But to your point, even in those 7 starts, even when Mark Andrews was 6th in receiving yards among all tight ends and getting a decent amount of target share from Lamar Jackson, at the end of the day, in those starts, he was still tight end 21 on a per game basis. Mark Andrews was.
Right. So
tight end 16 overall, tight end 21 on a per game basis here. Hayden Hurst was banged up a lot last year. Right. I know they like Hayden Hurst a lot.
Love Hayden Hurst. Yeah, yes. I like Hayden Hurst too, by the way.
I do as well. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Mike Clay and Adam Levitan kind of tag team to sort of not drop the mic here on Mark Andrews, but really further this point. 6 days ago, so this does not factor in the third preseason game, but Mike Clay tweeted, Mark Andrews never exceeded running a route on more than 55% of Baltimore's pass plays in a single game last season. He averaged 3.1 targets per game. Beware of limited volume in this offense. So even when they were throwing the football, Mark Andrews wasn't even necessarily running a route.
Yep.
Adam wisely responded, everyone blindly assumes it will change this year. So far in preseason, this was the first 2 preseason games, Mark Andrews has been in on 12 of 37 first-team snaps. Nick Boyle, their blocking tight end, 26. Hayden Hurst, the other pass-catching tight end, 14. So, like, you're talking about a low-volume or a low-efficiency passing offense and a sort of like a starting backup tight end.
Yeah.
Or backup starting tight end. However you want to call that,
tight end by committee. It
really is in Baltimore. So, like the player and see some upside, but not getting too crazy here with Mark Andrews.
There are people that will absolutely reach for Mark Andrews in your draft, and he's gotten a decent amount of buzz, but I much prefer Jack Doyle, who we talked about earlier, and Darren Waller, currently going as tight end 21 and 22 on ESPN.com. Give me both those guys over Mark Andrews this season. So, yeah, I don't get the Mark Andrews love the way some other people do. I sort of see the argument, but I'm a little nervous about him. Again, I am at tight end 17. But yes, definitely follow Adam Levitan on Twitter. He does a great job.
Time now for a quick break before we talk about the Cincinnati Football Club.
Fantasy, you're in the 06010. Focus. Fantasy, focus.
Vegas has the Bengals winning 6 games this season. It's been a tough couple of years for Cincinnati. You finally made a coaching change this offseason. Zach Taylor is in. Marvin Lewis is out. Andy Dalton. So quarterback's still here, Matthew. They are not going to extend him. Basically, it is winning time for Andy Dalton, or else he won't be there in Cincinnati next season. In 11 games last year, he had
surprised about that?
Yes, very surprised.
I am as
yes
well.
And no. Yes, because of the fact that the Bengals are incredibly loyal to the soil. They keep players they drafted, and they almost always extend guys 1 year out. No, because Andy Dalton's not very good. As an NFL quarterback, I know he's had some bright fantasy moments.
He's had some bright fantasy moments.
I think that, locking in Andy Dalton is, I think it's putting a ceiling on what you can be as a franchise.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen it through the Bengals themselves, right?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Given how quarterback starved the NFL is, like Andy Dalton, I don't know, like they've gotten to a number of playoffs with Andy Dalton as a quarterback, and he hasn't won. And
I think it's sort of a rebuild right now.
Yeah,
I think this is year 1 of a rebuild of Cincinnati. Part of the reason why I think it will be amazing. I mean, I know they would not like this, but if A.J. Green were expendable via trade, I would love to see a team pounce on that. So let's get into Dalton. Not a player that either one of us has particularly much confidence in this year for fantasy football. Not draftable this year, I'm assuming.
Yes.
So Andy Dalton, pass on him. Listen, he was. There's a lot of red flags. Offense is poor. Talent is poor. Yeah,
red
flags. That's right.
Yeah,
Andy Dalton, we can probably pass on in terms of his overall quarterback value this year. But A.J. Green is where things get interesting. A.J. Green, as we know, is going to miss a couple of games to begin this season. That's at least the current timetable as he recovers from an ankle injury suffered in practice right at the outset of training camp. You've got him at wide receiver 25. I've got him at wide receiver 22 with ADP as wide receiver 26. Of course, that factors in the possibility of him missing, let's call it 2 games. Right now, we think it's going to be 2 games. Matthew, though, when he returns, what are your expectations for A.J. Green once he is back to full health?
I think he's still a talented player who's going to command a massive target share. I've sort of come around on A.J. Green, similar to what you were talking about here with Lamar Jackson, which is, early on he was on the hate list, and I was talking him down, and then he gets hurt, and his ADP is, and one of the reasons why I was down on him coming into the year and why he was on the hate list is because of the injuries, right? He's missed at least 6 games 2 of the last 3 years. It's been, it's not a lot of seasons recently where he's played all 16 games. And so he's turned 31. And so that's all a concern. And yet now his ADP has dropped so far to wide receiver 26, currently going, I believe, in the 6th round field.
Yep.
And so like the 6th round for a guy who, last year, when he was healthy, was wide receiver 8 in total points.
Right, he had a target share of 27% when he was playing last year, which is huge. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins led the NFL at 33, so if he had played a full season, he's probably a top 5 or 6 guy in terms of target share, one of the best deep threats in football, and Daniel has a question.
Yeah, and with the ADPs, the way that they constantly change, he's currently going 70th overall, which is actually 8th round. Wow. So you're saying that he's like 6th round is a much better, like you're comfortable with him in that range?
Well, I think what happens a lot is I've found more and more that people are injury averse in drafting.
Yeah.
I just think that's the case, is that let somebody else be the person that takes A.J. Green. So I think that his ADP will continue to slide.
But if you think about it, right? So if you think about it, 6th round, you've done 5 picks by then. Did that
8th round?
No, but I'm just even saying.
Okay.
Daniel's saying if you want to even say 6th round, if you want to reach for him a little bit. By the 6th round, you've got 5 picks. So in theory, you might have 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and someone else. Maybe a flex running back, maybe a tight end. There, maybe another wide receiver. So potentially in the 6th round, he's your 3rd or 4th wide receiver.
Right.
And he's not even your starting flex if you ended up going away the 3rd running back there in the 5th. So to get A.J. Green, even if he only plays half the season, but to get 8 games out of A.J. Green in the 6th round, all day, every day. So I've come around on A.J. Green. I think the price has dropped so far that he's actually now become a bargain as opposed to a bust.
Well, I agree on that. We actually have Tyler Boyd, both of us do, ranked ahead of A.J. Green. Now, of course, a lot of that is because one of them's healthy, one of them is not.
That's right.
He's wide receiver 20 in my ranks, wide receiver 22 in your ranks, wide receiver 27 in terms of ADP. Now, let me be the first to say, earlier I kind of poo-pooed Andy Dalton's value this year, but I also will say this.
Yeah.
I have watched enough of the Bengals this preseason to be very encouraged by the innovative feel to it, led by Zach Taylor. This is not nearly the same offense as it was last year. There's a lot of good things happening there systematically and schematically that I think will eventually lead to somebody having fantasy success in this offense. I just don't know it would be this year because the talent may not be where it needs to be. But I'm encouraged by that, and I think that Tyler Boyd has a chance to be a benefactor of all of these changes. We expect the volume to be pretty solid, Matthew. We talked about this when A.J. Green got hurt earlier on in the year. Just because A.J. Green is out, don't necessarily expect that, hey, Tyler Boyd's going to assume that 27% target share. It might be closer to 20 or so percent.
Yeah, I agree with that. But here's the thing on Tyler Boyd. But again, not all target shares created equal, right? So if it's a better offense, if you're saying that they're going to scheme guys open, and it's more inventive, it's more creative. Remember, weeks 2 through 15 last year, this guy was the 11th best wide receiver in fantasy.
Yeah, quietly successful.
He had just 1 drop in 107 targets. And so, and a lot of point of so Lou Riddick talks about this all the time in terms of sponsorship.
Sure.
In terms of, and I talk about this as well, that it's, I think, a very underrated aspect of fantasy analysis, which is the politics of a locker room and sort of the hierarchy of the non-football stuff. And so, he's talked about this, last year people were questioning why I had Saquon Barkley top 4 overall as a rookie behind.
What were you thinking?
Well, I mean, because it's easy to say that out, but a year ago, people were like, rookie running back, they're going to be awful, offensive line's awful, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, sponsorship. It's the same thing that Lou and I would talk about. Like, the Giants need Saquon to work. They need to make him work.
So do you feel the Bengals need
They just signed him to a big deal?
Yeah, I mean, it was an investment. I don't think it was major money. It was an investment for a wide receiver. They would like him to be a good player. No question.
They would, but it was. Yeah. Wouldn't you argue that it was a bigger? I'll put it this way, and maybe you disagree. You follow this stuff much more closely than I do, wearing your NFL insider hat. But I thought it was a much bigger deal than I expected for a guy that really only had 1 year of production.
I think I'm somewhere in between. Like, I think it was a nice contract. I think there was more meat on the bone if he had played out one more year that he could have really profited next offseason on the open market, is what I would say. Understood.
But again, I feel like the Bengals, especially knowing that A.J. Green at 31 years old, as to your point, if this is really a true rebuild in Cincinnati, A.J. Green, whether it's via trade or retirement or whatever, he's not that much longer for this team. Maybe it's this season, maybe it's next season, maybe it's a couple seasons, but whatever. Tyler Boyd is part of the future in a way that A.J. Green is not, and so I think they need Tyler Boyd to work.
Would be great to see him work, and I am, again, as I said, I am encouraged not just by Tyler Boyd as the player, but I do believe this offense will be a lot more enjoyable to watch. Yeah. It won't put you to sleep like it did last year, Daniel. Isn't that right?
That is right. Field, that's a great question. Now that we're there, when was the last time you really slept great?
Watching the Bengals last year.
That's fair.
Yeah.
True. Isn't it strange that we'll try just about anything to sleep better, putting on Bengals replays, for example, when it actually could be time for a new mattress? If you aren't getting the quality sleep you deserve, you should check out the Sleep Number bed. Right now at Sleep Number stores, it's the biggest sale of the year. All beds are on sale, and queen mattresses start at only $8.99. Wish your mattress could be firmer or softer? That's what the Sleep Number bed is famous for. You can adjust each side so that it's just right for both of you. How about the bed that also keeps you asleep? The Sleep Number 360 smart bed senses your movements and automatically adjusts so you're effortlessly comfortable all night long. Will you love it? Just ask JD Power. Sleep Number has been ranked #1 in customer satisfaction with mattresses. For 2018 award information, visit jdpower.com. Come in during the biggest sale of the year, and for a limited time, save 50% on a Sleep Number 360 limited edition smart bed. You'll only find Sleep Number at one of their 575 Sleep Number stores nationwide.
How many?
575, That's Matthew Berry.
A lot.
Find the one nearest you at sleepnumber.com/FFF.
Could we get a mattress in here?
Be great. Be awesome.
You want a mattress in here?
Oh my God, I would totally nap during the show.
Be amazing.
Be so fantastic. I could lie on the sleep mattress bed with so I'm down and just a microphone there.
Yeah.
That would be perfect.
And you could have
a podcast if I was lying down.
That would be ideal.
Sleep Number should also sponsor the Sleepers piece that I don't like to write every year. How about that?
I'll work on making that happen, Field.
Someone should reach out to our ad sales group. All right. Because I can sleep anywhere. When we were away for this wedding this weekend, overseas, not really overseas.
Overseas,
but I was in a different country. So the wedding was at a resort, and so I brought the wife with me.
Your wife with you?
I brought my wife with me.
My wife.
My wife. I brought my wife. I brought Stefania's wife with me. Stefania was there as well.
Very nice. Yeah.
Stefania was at the wedding as well, of course, and she ended up spending more time with Stefania than me. But anyway, we got a couples massage, Beth and I did. And Beth was horrified. You tell me the etiquette on this. Beth was horrified because apparently I fell asleep during the couples massage. I was so relaxed, and I started snoring a little bit.
There's nothing wrong with that at all.
Beth was just saying, she was like, oh, it's so hard. I'm like, why? To me, it's a compliment.
They did such a great
good job.
Exactly.
I was so relaxed. I was just like, I was out. It was like an 80-minute massage. That's a long time.
That's a long time.
It's a long time to be awake.
80 minutes. Whew. Nice.
There was part of a facial. You got a facial part of it. You are
looking glowful today.
Thank
That's
you
a
very
word.
much.
Yeah, you glow up. Yeah.
We had a great time.
All right, Joe Mixon and the Bengals running backs are something to discuss here. Mixon was outstanding last year. He led the AFC in rushing yards in 14 games. He had 1,168 rushing yards. He had 9 total touchdowns. Running back 7 for you, Matthew. Running back 10 for me. ADP is running back 9. really sort of a breakout year last year for Joe Mixon. Can it continue to grow this season?
I think so. Obviously, the offensive line is a concern.
Yeah,
for
it's
Cincinnati.
one of the worst in football. Yeah, it's right there with Houston as one of the biggest question marks in the NFL.
Yeah, so
Arizona.
That is a concern here. But volume is not, right? Guy averaged 20 touches per game last year. That was the sixth highest rate in the NFL, right? He's caught over 82% of his targets as a pro. He's really good. He's a true 3-down back as well, right? Thirsty Kyle found this, among the 30 running backs that have at least 75 targets during the stretch when Mixon was a pro. Among the 30 running backs that have at least 75 targets over Joe Mixon's pro career, his catch rate is fourth best in the NFL. And so, he just gets a massive amount of volume, over 66% of the Bengals carries. That's the fourth highest rate in the NFL. And so I think volume and his passing game usage is what keeps him at a very high floor. And also just the eye test. Joe Mixon, I think, is insanely talented. I mean, coming out of college, the questions about Joe were entirely off the field. No one questioned his talent.
No question. I mean, listen, certainly a despicable incident took place off the field. He has so far been a solid citizen for the Bengals and certainly seems to be making news for all the right reasons during his Cincinnati career. Again, both of us like him as a top 10 play this year. I'm seeing a lot of people drafting him in the first round, and I'm not saying that's necessarily the craziest thing in the world given how few good running backs there are.
How few good bell cow running backs that
especially
that
without
injury,
questions right now, right?
Yes.
No injury, no contract issue, right?
No contract issues, not holding out. He hasn't done anything dumb off the field.
Sure.
To your point, I mean, there's no forgiving what he did in college, but we're talking about him purely as a fantasy football asset. And so from that perspective, Guy is, I think, a legit first rounder this year.
The top backup here is Giovanni Bernard. Has been there for a long time in Cincinnati. Very reliable player. We think he is the clear-cut handcuff if Joe Mixon gets hurt, or is enough Travion Williams buzz this offseason out of Texas A&M, one of your former Aggies.
Yes, I mean, I love Travion Williams. Actually, I just picked him up in a dynasty league.
Nice.
So you and I have a dynasty league draft on Thursday night.
Thursday night, that's right. Yep.
Thursday night. Me and you and Secret Squirrel and Thirsty Kyle. Are you in that league, Thirsty Kyle?
Yep. I am.
How did you weasel your way into that league?
I'm around, and they needed an extra body.
That's what you are, an extra body. So Thirsty Kyle's in that league. I believe Stefania and is Mike Clay in that league as well?
Daniel's the commissioner.
Mike Clay is in that league, as well as Scott Clark.
All biz.
Yep. DJ Gallo, who's the writer of our the fantasy show on ESPN Plus.
Yep.
So
DJ's very funny.
Yeah, a couple other people from the
Peyton Manning
show.
after his cameo.
Peyton Manning's in the league. I believe that's right.
Yep.
So
sweet, nice, awesome.
Yeah. So we got a good group.
So we still think though that Giovanni Bernard over Travion Williams, a player that we do like, maybe has some dynasty stash value.
But I would, to answer your question directly, I believe that if something were to happen to Mixon, I think it would be Bernard.
Yeah, I'd say so as well. I think that's probably where I'd lean. Now, it may not be assumes the role entirely, but I do believe that Giovanni Bernard would get the first crack at the job if something happens to Joe Mixon. Last player here for the Bengals is Tyler Eifert, who's back right now. He is healthy. Matthew, is there just too many risks? Have you seen it too many times where he starts the season and then does not finish the season that you say to yourself, I'm good? Yeah,
I mean, listen, if you want to take a flyer, I mean, it's just how many tight ends do you want to carry? You can't go into the season with just him as your tight end. Right? But I have seen, and I think we figured this out, that it was Evan Silva, our friend Evan Silva, who does a great job, who tweeted out the theory of, why not draft Eifert and
plus
Chris Herndon.
Oh, Herndon, that's what it was.
Chris Herndon, because Herndon's suspended for the first 4 games, and you hope that Eifert can last 4 games, and then you sort of have an upside tight end.
Special, yeah.
But, yeah, for me, it's just too much. Too many injuries, and just it's really tough. I think if you're going to draft a oft injured but talented tight end late, I prefer Jordan Reed to Tyler Eifert.
With you on that. Okay, Daniel, time now for a crappy promo.
It's New York Times bestselling author Matthew Berry with another self-serving, self-indulgent, all-about-me promo.
Rotopass.com, baby. Listen, you are drafting this week. You are drafting next week. What do you need? You need rotopass.com. It is the ultimate fantasy football resource. Not only do you get a subscription to ESPN Plus, so you can watch the fantasy show, you can read stuff from Field, Stefania, and Mike Clay and the whole gang there, but in addition to that, you get access to a bunch of great sites as well. Many great sites, one low price. It is you get customized ranks or auction values. You get draft software. You get alerts. You get great content, scouting, X's and O's. You get video. Honestly, everything you could possibly need to dominate your draft and your league, and then about 10 other things. Like great tools that help you out throughout the season that tell you, that you can import your league settings and say like, here's a guy that you should pick up. Here are the guys you could trade. Like so many tools that help you win, that just make it easy for you. And if you use the promo code Chapin, CHAPIN, promo code Chapin gets you 10% off. Go to rotopass.com. And by the way, if you're somebody who's just like, you know what, I don't want to spend on it, why not sign up for our newsletter? We do a free newsletter every single day. You can sign up for that at rotopass.com/newsletter and get fantasy news and info delivered to your email box every single day. Free. Get, news updates and everything like that. It's a great newsletter.
Yeah, very useful. That much is for sure. Okay, Daniel, I want to pass it over to you for some show league updates. What do you got for us?
All right, so if you want to send in your submission, you go to fantasyfocuspodcast@gmail.com. If for some reason you have been promised a spot in this league, you need to send in that submission.
So yeah, I'll just say this right now. So there was I did that show out in Vegas, and there was a young woman that came out. She came out to both the Friday night event and the Saturday night event, and she was talking about how she's been in the league. She's been a listener for a long, long time, and she was like referencing Nate and the whole thing. So she's been a listener for a ton of years, and she's tried to enter in the league every single year. And so I promised her a spot. But here's what I said to her: is I said, you need, because she sent me an email like literally Friday night. And I said, no, don't send me an email Friday night. Like I have a gabillion emails. When we call for entries, send me an email and I will get you in. So if she is listening and she knows exactly who she is, if she is listening, this is the time for you to send in your email and we will get you in. But regardless of whether she manages to do that or not, we still have open spots, Secret Squirrel.
We do. We have 4 open spots left to fill. We'll see if we get any of them filled today.
Does that include her or no?
In theory, that would include her spot being filled. So if she doesn't, then we've got a 5th.
Okay,
right.
Cool.
So we'll see where we're at. All right. This one comes from Marisa V. On October 12th, I am taking Kyle's V card. Congratulations. I think that's enough for me to get into the show league. That's from Marisa.
That is, of course, can I spoil that is, of course, Kyle's soon-to-be wife.
Yes.
Yeah.
She wants in. Is that right, Kyle?
Sure. I think Daniel made up that question, but she'd be happy to play.
Okay.
She's not taking okay.
No, the V card notwithstanding.
I have a question about that. Because Kyle and Marisa have been together for, I believe, 7.5 years.
Going on 13.
13.
Yes.
Say. More than like that's longer than like a doctor needs to get to become an actual doctor.
Yeah. So it was very funny, but that's not an actual entry.
It's not an actual entry. No, I'm just making fun of Kyle.
Early congratulations to you, Kyle.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations to you,
Appreciate
Kyle.
that.
All right. And you and Marisa.
This question comes from Amelie. This email, sorry. Hello, everyone. My name is Amelie. I hope this isn't too late. On top of having no hustle, I'm just now developing moving limbs, and getting Wi-Fi connection in here is rather tricky. Oh, I guess I should mention that I'm a baby girl to be of the 2 of the biggest fans and longtime downloaders of the show. But since I'm now developing ears, I started to listen for myself. And even though I don't know what fantasy football is, I'm very interested in an opportunity to play in a league with the real star of the show, Star Fania Bell. Together with my multi-time champion mommy, our team will be unstoppable. No one will be able to defeat us. And she spelled it DE-.
Yeah, I get it. No, I got that.
I think I got my dad's sense of humor. Sorry. Plus, if you give me a chance to be the first ever show league to be born team manager, my mommy agrees to give me a middle name fit for a champion, Bell. In honor of our favorite fantasy football and injury analyst, spelling of the name is negotiable, and a photocopy of the birth certificate will be sent as proof when I am born. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, your boondoggler in training, Amelie and her mom, Tracy.
All right, so if I understand this correctly, Tracy is offering to basically make this child's middle name Bell in honor of Stefania.
In honor of Stefania.
Could have gone with Berry or Yates, but...
Yeah, see, feels like you should have read this on a day when Stefania's here.
Okay, well, I understand that. I wanted you to be able to weigh in on this because I felt like you would have fun with this one.
I also appreciated the fact that when Daniel read this soon-to-be-born girl's name, you read it like the person who delivers the words at the spelling bee, like not like Amelie, but like Amelie.
Right.
Amelie. Is it
use
like,
it in a
sentence.
Is it a noun?
Are there any homonyms for that?
Right.
It's just an option. I can wait and we can do this with Stefania being here. When Stefania's here, you're not going to be here, Matthew Berry.
I think this is a maybe.
Okay, it's a maybe. Do we have any more? Do you have one more submission to consider right now, Daniel?
I have another submission to consider. Yep, we can do this one. This one comes from Chris. Hello to my beer-drinking fantasy footballers and Stefania.
Yep.
I'm commissioned for my friends' leagues that have been going on for over 10 years, also a huge craft beer geek like Field. However, I've taken it to the next level. I've been home brewing for the past several years.
Wow.
Nice.
Each year I brew up a couple different beers for our league to enjoy while we draft.
Nice.
This year I've made 3 very important and very tasty brews. Below are the descriptions. First one is called Field of Hops. In honor of Field, of course. This is a juicy IPA brewed with a Citra and Mosaic hops with an ABV of 6.8%.
Yum.
Second one is Matty Full of Berries, a fruity and crispy Berliner Weiss. Is that how you say it? I don't know.
Close enough, yeah.
This was aged on blueberries, strawberries, and cranberries, the weakest of all the alcohol content at 4.2%. And then Stefania has this one is the crowd pleaser. It's just called the Stefania. A crushable yet juicy blonde ale that's brewed with Galaxy and Ella hops, 4.4% alcohol. This brew is cursed as the previous winner has to drink the trophy, which is filled with this year's yearly blonde. For the past 4 years, the trophy drinker has gone from first to worst. Pictures of all of them were included in the email. Thank you for consideration, Chris, the home brewer.
I'm biased. I say he's in. So first of all, I have zero interest in brewing my own beer. There's so much good beer out there that's made by professionals that I have zero interest in even trying to replicate their success. But I'm appreciative of the effort here. Your thoughts? You were less convinced.
Yeah, I mean,
you want to try the beer.
I like the idea that he makes it and then the league drinks the beer that he's made during the draft. I like the idea. It's
definitely like sort of hashtag fantasy life that he makes the beer and they all drink it and it's a tradition. So I love that piece of it. I didn't think the descriptions were all that funny. I could be honest with you.
I thought that they were accurate, the berry, the fact that you got a very berry one. I love a New England IPA. Stefania, the blonde ale,
you are the craft beer drinker of the 0600. You are Mr. IPA, so it is entirely up to you. I leave this one to you. This would not be a yes for me, but I'm not going to veto it either. I'm leaving it to you. So if it is a yes for you, then he can be in. It's entirely up to you. I
don't fast pass anybody into the league. I never have the ability to exert my authority. There's never anybody that's kind of my guy in the fantasy league. Matthew fast passes like half the league a year. Daniel led in a crappy band yesterday.
Yeah.
Stefania gets her, pick of the litter every once in a while. I'm in on Chris. Chris, my beer drinking buddy. Craft beer. Well, by the way, we picked this.
Homebrew?
Welcome to the listeners.
Oh, yeah. Craft Brew Chris. Are we good with Craft Brew Chris?
Craft Brew Chris, and it's the show league. Welcome to the show league.
All right. Craft Brew Chris, welcome to the show league.
Put it on the board.
All right, let's time for a social question or no?
Yeah, we've got 2 social questions. They're going to be real fast. Okay. Ralph wants to know, am I crazy to like Michael Gallup at his price?
Bring this podcast home with do we have
of wide receiver 43 more than Amari Cooper at his price of wide receiver 11?
No, listen, it's possible that Michael Gallup yields much better return than other players being drafted around wide receiver 43. Could he be the best player ranked from 38 to 48? Of course, but one of them has a chance to be the pillar of your championship lineup.
And by the way, Gallup has had a very impressive preseason as well. I think if there wasn't all the Zeke/Tony Pollard talk, I think people would be talking more about Michael Gallup and what he's doing. Talented young player, like him a lot. Another guy that I have in in that dynasty league. And Amari Cooper, even when Amari Cooper is rolling, still has some inconsistency issues for him. So wide receiver 11, where Amari Cooper is going, and he's going right around when you think about he's going ahead of Adam Thielen or Julian Edelman or Brandon Cooks, right? 4 picks behind Keenan Allen. Both are going middle to late third round. So yes, is there a chance that Michael Gallup, outperforms his ADP, or you prefer him at wide receiver 43 where there's no risk to wide receiver 11 where you're passing on some studs? Certainly, you're not crazy. You are not crazy, Ralph, to like Gallup at his price more than Cooper. That was his question.
Garcia wants to know, what are your thoughts on price enforcing during an auction?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it unless it's at a place where I need. Because what happens often is that when you price enforce.
Explain what price enforcing is for listeners that don't know.
Price enforcing is that, so the idea is that I'm making it up, but let's say a player is worth $30, right? A running back is worth $30 by your sheet. And he's sitting there going, he's like at 11, 12. I'm making it up. Let's pretend somehow some projections have LaShawn McCoy, and that wouldn't be the case. But like Derrick Henry at $30, right? $30 for Derrick Henry. And so, or 35. And so people are sitting there going like 15, 16. It's like later in the auction, and a lot of money is out. And so so price enforcing would be like 28. Like, because you have him as 35 on your sheet. So you're like 28. You want to make sure you get that price up, right? That somebody's not getting a massive bargain. The problem is that like I don't like Derrick Henry this year. And so what happens is sometimes you price enforce and then you get stuck with that player, right? Because everyone's just like, all right, well, I'm out. What happens when people price enforce is that they assume that the people bidding on him at a low price are going to jump up to make them in a big way, right?
Right.
And so and are going to jump up and try to buy them for that price. So I'm not a huge fan of price enforcing. Like, there's going to be bargains in an auction. There always is. There's going to be undervalued players. Now, if you happen to like Derrick Henry or you're okay with him at that price, go for it. But too often I see people price enforcing just for the sake of price enforcing, and then you get stuck with a team that isn't what you wanted. You get stuck spending money you didn't have or that you didn't budget. And so worry less about other people's teams during an auction and worry about your own. That's what price enforcing really is you're starting to worry about other people's teams.
I totally disagree with you because I think it's a strategy. And you obviously you should not put in a bid unless you are willing to roster that player at that amount. But it is totally a strategy of, you know what? If I get Derrick Henry for $15 rather than $13, I will be happy with it.
That's not price enforcing. That's just bidding him up. I'm saying price enforcing is on Derrick Henry. If we're saying Derrick Henry, I'm making up auction numbers off the top of my head, right? Because we don't know how many teams or how many.
Yeah.
But if Derrick Henry is $35 and you price enforcing is saying 30, not 15.
And if you make that decision, then if you get him for 30, then you made that. Like, that is a strategy, and you have to be fully on board with getting him at that price.
But I would argue that that's saying I want Derrick Henry and I'm just trying to get him below value. Price enforcing is when you don't actually care about the player. You don't want the player. You just don't want somebody else to get him for cheap.
Yeah.
A debate that will roll on in eternity. We are back on Wednesday. A couple more teams in double trouble. To be honest with you, I don't know who we have not yet previewed in double trouble. We will get to them tomorrow. In the meantime, follow Matthew Berry, TMR, on all forms of social media, except for the Fantasy Life app. He's just Matthew Berry. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Peace out.
You're in the 06010. Never gonna hustle in case you didn't know. Matthew Berry, TMR.
You guys go ahead, give me grief for being on SportsCenter for 45 seconds.
I think you could do better than me because I don't think you could.
Berry and Field Yates.
You're terrible at hashtag improv. At Field Yates. At Field Yates.
Stefania Bell.
Oh, don't let Barry convert you.
Secret Squirrel Daniel Dodd.
Make it happen.
Mediocre fantasy advice.
You're older than people realize.
That never stops.
Loyal 06010.